Is the rise in BookTok a direct response to America's growing literacy issues? And furthermore, is it a way to mark oneself as separate from or superior to those most affected by those literacy issues? That is the issue that I want to break down today. If you don't already know, my name is Cece and I make bookish content that includes reading vlogs, bookish commentaries, etc. If you like this kind of content and you haven't already, make sure that you subscribe down below and go ahead and like the video while you're there. And let's jump into today's discussion. BookTok is often praised as the revival of reading culture. It is a movement that has made books and reading cool again, and it has gotten millions of people back into bookstores, even helping to bring major bookstore chains like Barnes & Noble back from the brink of bankruptcy. But beneath the cozy aesthetics, the annotated pages, and the walls of color-coded copies, I want to ask a deeper question. What does it signal in our society that reading is trending again? In many ways, BookTok seems to operate as a performative response to America's literacy crisis. It allows people to assert an intellectual identity through visible engagement with books and reading on social media, while ironically, the culture that it creates seems to push consumption over comprehension. You can look and seem intellectual and smart without actually putting in the work to be those things. Reading in this space becomes less about understanding and more about being seen understanding. It's less about loving books and more about loving what books can signal about you. And to really understand how we got here, I want to go back to a time whenever literacy and books themselves were a luxury. Historically, home libraries were not just functional, they were largely symbolic. They signaled wealth, education, and privilege. It was a visual statement for anybody who entered your home that said, I am learned, I am cultured, and I belong to a certain class of people. In the 18th and 19th centuries, and even further back, literacy itself was a form of privilege. Not only were books expensive, but education was largely restricted to those who could afford it and those who were even allowed to attend schools. To own shelves and shelves of leather-bound books wasn't simply to show that you love reading, it was to show that you have education and leisure time that allows you to even engage with these ideas in the first place. It was in the same realm of having an art gallery in your home, or gold chandeliers on your ceiling, or a private chef from France. This was all wealth signaling. However, with the expansion of public school systems in the 19th and 20th centuries, reading became more widespread and accessible. Literacy was no longer a privilege, but a right, something to be expected of somebody. Reading and owning books lost their exclusivity, even though large home libraries still kept their symbolic value. Owning books and displaying them still suggested refinement. This may not be as common now, especially with younger generations, but having dinner parties, inviting the community into your home, giving them tours. This is whenever people would witness and perceive your intelligence, so to speak. However, with the involvement of social media, this performance has also changed. Now we have a curated bookshelf in the back of your selfie. We have bookshelf tours on TikTok. And we have photos of performative celebrities carrying books around while they run their errands. The performance of intellect has simply evolved. And BookTok is at the center of that performance. BookTok is where reading is aesthetic and where the algorithm matters more than the intellect. On one hand, BookTok is a huge success story. It has driven book sales, revived an interest in literature, and helped push debut authors that otherwise would not have been discovered. Publishers have publicly credited BookTok for turning books into bestsellers, something known as the BookTok effect. The aesthetic of BookTok, the annotated pages, the candles, the cozy reading corners, the rainy day bookstore vlogs, they have turned reading into lifestyle content. We have commodified and branded the act of reading itself and made it into something to be performed, shared, and monetized. It is less about the books themselves and what you are getting from them, and more about the look of reading and of being a reader. And this aesthetic, while it has done some good and it is seemingly harmless, it is a part of a bigger discussion. Because whenever literacy itself is on a decline, the act of performing literacy takes on a new meaning altogether. And here's the paradox. BookTok's biggest success actually might be its biggest illusion. Because yes, it has gotten millions of people back into reading, but what kind of reading are we talking about? What kind of content are people consuming? In 2019, roughly 4.1% of US adults were functionally illiterate, meaning that they couldn't locate information in short text or fill out basic forms. And by 2023, 28 adults scored at or below level 1 literacy proficiency. That is up 9 points since 2017. That's 9 points in only 6 years. That is nearly 1 in 3 adults who struggle to fully comprehend the text that they read. BookTok may seem like the perfect antidote, but its model of reading, fast, emotional, and reaction-driven, might mirror that same superficial comprehension that is driving literacy rates down. It's kind of like in school. If we can appear as though we are reading, comprehending, passing math with a D or above, they'll move you up to the next grade. It's not a true test of comprehension, but of getting you to pass enough tests to move you forward. That is the trend that we are seeing in pretty much all facets of education and in educational activities within the United States at the moment. The BookTok algorithm celebrates volume over depth. How many books did you read this month? How many 5 stars did you have this year? Numbers have become the defining metric of success as a reader. 100 to 200 books in a year may look impressive, but what did those books mean to you? What did they say to you? What did they challenge? Which ones have stuck with you the most? On BookTok, emotional payoff is the most important. It has to make you cry, scream, or fall in love to be deemed interesting or valuable. It doesn't matter if it made you think, as long as it made you feel. And we all know that feelings can be faked or dramatized for the sake of engagement. It doesn't matter if you read the same genres, the same authors, the same comfort reads for 2, 3, 4 years on BookTok. It doesn't matter if you progress as a reader, if you reach new skills, if you access new levels of comprehension. What other hobbies or skills is going to allow you to stay this stagnant? A musician is expected to improve over time, to play more difficult pieces, to learn music in different languages. A rock climber is expected to take on expert walls at some point. But reading somehow stays stagnant. It's not something you grow at, it's just something that you do. This normalization is subtle, but it can be dangerous. When we stop expecting reading to be challenging, we lose one of its greatest benefits, which is to expand our empathy, our perspective, our worldview, our self-view. Challenge your critical thinking skills. Allow yourself to put yourself in somebody else's shoes that you don't understand or that you don't like, and to really understand their story and their point of view. BookTok most definitely has increased the appearance of literacy, but it also might be lowering our standards of what literacy actually is. And this brings us to an even bigger cultural phenomenon, which is the rise of anti-intellectualism. In the digital age, platforms reward simplicity and emotion and catchy hooks, crazy concepts. Complexity does not perform well, and nuance is often misunderstood. The algorithm favors content that is easy to digest, that will keep you scrolling, liking, and buying. And reading, which is ultimately a slow activity, has to become fast in order to survive in this climate. Reading has turned into a signal. Saying, I read, or I'm a reader, is a way of drawing a line between yourself and the illiterate, the informed and the uninformed, the privileged and the not privileged. It's a kind of elitism that has taken on this relatable lifestyle form. But the irony is that a lot of BookTok's most visible and viral content damages those intellectual claims. There are viral videos of creators who have admitted to skipping pages or to only reading dialogue, which really just shows that they want the status of reading without putting the work into it. And also, if you're so bored of your books that you need to skip pages, maybe you need to read more difficult or more interesting books. That's just me. They want the clout of reading without the challenge of actually thinking and comprehending. This isn't all of BookTok, of course. I would never make that claim. Many creators genuinely love reading and have for their whole lives, or have recently gotten into reading but have genuinely thrown themselves into it and work on bettering themselves every single day. However, the portion that dominates the algorithm is unfortunately the books have too many words side of the community. This is what gets shared and mocked and what makes the news. This is how modern reading culture is represented at large. It is the desire to appear intellectual and to separate oneself from those who do not have access to quality education. But we are living in a society that doesn't really value intellectualism as a privilege anymore. Historically, books are knowledge, and they still can be. But on BookTok, it's more of an aesthetic mood board, signaling what kind of reader you are. Do you like dark romances? Do you like fluffy romances? Do you like fantasy? We can look at your shelves online and kind of tell what kind of reader you are based on the color scheme of the spines behind you. It's not about knowledge, it's about aesthetic. There's also a class dynamic at play. In the 18th and 19th century, owning a library meant that you had money, extra space in your home, leisure time, and more money. And today, participating in these BookTok challenges kind of require a similar set of criteria. It's the money to buy 10, 20, 30 new releases every single month. The extra space in your home to set up large bookshelves. The ability to purchase a cozy reading chair and extra blankets and lights so that you can have a reading nook. These things require time and money. Meanwhile, the schools and teachers producing America's next generation of readers are underfunded and overworked. Similarly, many parents are underfunded and overworked. They simply don't have the time or capacity, or some of them might not even have the knowledge to assist their children and to bridge those gaps in our education system. Schools with predominantly Black and Brown student populations spend on average $733 less per student than predominantly white schools. These disparities directly affect literacy rates. This means that statistically, some communities are systematically deprived of these skills. They simply don't have the resources to better equip their students. The result? Reading and owning books is both democratized and exclusive. It is accessible in theory, but performative as a whole. BookTok has also turned reading into consumption. Just as fast fashion survives on a constant turnover rate, the publishing industry now chases viral cycles. Books are designed for algorithmic appeal with striking covers, emotional hooks, short chapters, and simple wording. Influencers post huge hauls and use language such as BookTok make me buy it. This is the same kind of language that we see whenever we look at fashion content, makeup content, skincare content. Reading has become another lifestyle category. And many creators have openly admitted that they have not read most of the books on their shelves. I'm talking 70-80% of huge home libraries unread, while they continue to buy more and more and kind of joke about having no plans on reading most of the books that they own. And in a way, this makes sense. Those books aren't for reading, they're for showing. Their purpose is to be a prop in the back of a video, not to actually be read. The books that will be read are the ones that are going the most viral at the moment, and the ones that provide the most clickability on somebody's video. Books succeed or fail not based on literary merit, but based on their ability to go viral. And the conversations around the literature on these platforms is often very shorthand. It's, oh my gosh, you have to read this book, it made me cry. Or, these are 10 books that I do not think you should read. We hardly ever see content on BookTok that goes in depth, and I understand that this is a short form content platform. That is totally acceptable. However, with the ability to post a 2-minute review or a 2-minute 50 book haul, it's kind of easy to see which one is going to be more popular and which one a creator trying to pay their bills is going to be more likely to push out. However, the point of this aesthetic is to prove that we can still read. There's a general anxiety and fear surrounding the educational status of our country. We fear becoming an uneducated nation, or at least that we will be perceived as an uneducated nation. During the pandemic, early literacy rates plummeted. More than 1 million children were forced to skip kindergarten, pushing their reading development back by years. In that context, BookTok almost feels like a defense mechanism. It is a way for society to reassure ourselves that we still value reading. and that we are still the highly educated culture that we imagine ourselves to be. And to an extent, it does work. BookTok has gotten people reading again. It has introduced thousands of readers to authors that they might never have encountered otherwise, and it has fostered a genuine passion and community. My intent is not to tear down BookTok, by any means. I love BookTok. However, I do want to ask the question, does BookTok exist because literacy is thriving, or does it exist because literacy is declining? It is both a very real and performative form of resistance against illiteracy. But ironically, it may reinforce the bad habits leading to this decline. When we read without reflection or consume without comprehension, we might technically be reading, but we're not thinking. And at this point in time, critical thinking is the biggest defense that we have. It is a skill that we want people to learn and to grow into. In this day and age where narratives are constantly being pushed and controlled by other people, the ability to absorb information, apply it to our own lives, and come up with our own conclusion is extremely important. There are countless creators who read deeply and who critique intelligently and encourage others to do the same. These people are the soul of this movement and of this growth. But the version of BookTok that dominates the public eye, the one that makes headlines and goes viral and influences publishers, is at its core performative. It is not about intellect. Historically, literacy is a privilege, and then it was a right. Now it's a performance, and we need to make sure that it doesn't become a privilege again. BookTok reminds us that people want to read, but they might just be replicating what they see online. If we can push more and more people to engage with the content that they consume, I think that we can really make a change in people's habits. That is the goal here. We need to change people's core beliefs, help them understand why they are engaging with books in the way that they are, and show them how to be better. You need to stop glamorizing consumption and remember that you don't need a huge home library or shelves and shelves of books to be a reader. You can go to the library and pick out books without the influence of the internet, find titles that genuinely speak to you, find issues that are important to you, and read those books. Read books with main characters from different parts of the world. Read books with main characters of different races and genders. And yes, that includes women reading books with male main characters. I know you don't want to, but you should, at least sometimes. Challenge yourself and challenge your mind, and you might surprise yourself at how much more fulfilling that even is. I know that it is fun to reach for comfort reads. I do it too. Sometimes that's all you really want. You want to wrap yourself up in a big blanket of words. However, make sure that that is not the only thing that you are reading. And if you are somebody who challenges yourself, make sure that you also challenge others in your life. Invite your friends and family to go to the library with you. Or recommend them books not only that you think that they'll like, but books that have changed your life and that you think that they could genuinely benefit from. BookTok has proven that people still love reading. And the next step is to remember why. If you made it to this point in the video, thank you so much for sticking around, and make sure that you go down below and comment little turkey emojis in the spirit of November. And if you have anything to add to this discussion, please go ahead and add it there as well. I want to know, do you think that BookTok is a direct response to these declining literacy rates? Or is this just a coincidence? Because it might just be. I might be looking for connections where there aren't any, and I would love to hear your thoughts. I read every single comment, and I really appreciate those who take the time to put together their thoughts, because I speak about things that are genuinely interesting to me, and when I'm talking to a camera, we're not really getting that discussion aspect of things. But yeah, that's all that I have for you today, and I will see you next week. Bye.